The sun had fallen below the horizon, throwing a warm warmth through the bedroom's transparent curtains. She rested in the low light. On the bed, her long hair falling down her shoulders, the day had been long and full of duties. She finally got a minute to decompress. The calm hum of the evening settled about her, offering the tranquility she desired. In the meantime, footsteps reverberated slowly down the corridor. He had just returned from a late afternoon run, adrenaline still racing through his veins. As he neared her room, he noticed the door slightly ajar, and curiosity tugged at him. As he gently pushed the door open, he was taken aback by the sight before him. His stepmother, dressed in a simple tank top and shorts, was playing with a satisfying tool and moaning. Her beauty was undeniable, even in the soft, fading light. He felt a rush of warmth flood through him, an unfamiliar flutter in his chest. He quickly averted his gaze, unsure if he should intrude on her solitude. "Hello? Are you okay?" he called gently, just above a whisper. She opened her eyes, shocked. "Oh, I didn't hear you come in," she said, a touch of color rising to her cheeks as she realized how she must seem. He moved deeper into the room, unable to help but admire her. He continued, trying to maintain a casual demeanor despite his racing heart. "That's lovely of you," she said, hiding the tool beside her. "Please come sit with me for a minute." He paused, then walked. They drew closer, sat on the side of the bed, exchanged pleasantries, and she felt humiliated and bashful. But there was an unsaid tension in the air, an electric current that neither could ignore. "You know," she said, her voice softening, "I'm really pleased we've become closer since things changed." He nodded, feeling the weight of her words. It had been an adjustment for both of them as they adjusted to their new family dynamic. "Yes, it's nice. I never imagined we'd bond like this," he acknowledged, his gaze lingering on her face. She grinned, her eyes gleaming. Sometimes the most significant partnerships are unexpected. As they chatted, she leaned back on the bed, her arms stretched over her head, revealing her toned physique, and he swallowed hard. "Do you ever consider how bizarre life may be?" she asked, her voice meditative. "All the time?" He answered with a friendly smirk, emerging on his face. "As if I used to believe you were merely my stepmother, and now you feel like more." She arched an eyebrow, a teasing grin playing on her lips. "How, exactly, are you more than just a stepmother?" He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "I honestly don't know. You're simply easy to talk to, and you make me feel heard." Her countenance softened, and they shared a long glance that seemed charged with something deeper. She said gently, "You're also easy to talk to. I've always appreciated that about you." Just then, the silence between them stretched the air thick with tension. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he caught her looking at him in a way that sent a thrill through him. "Can I ask you something?" he finally blurted out, his voice low. "Of course," she replied, propping herself up on her elbows, curiosity dancing in her eyes. "What do you really think about me?" He posed the query. She hesitated, her breath heavy in the air, weighing her response. "I think you're an incredible young guy. You're intelligent, caring, and have developed so much. That's something I admire." His breath caught in his mouth as he pondered her words. "And do you ever consider what it might be? Like if things were different?" She looked startled, with a tinge of astonishment on her face. "What exactly do you mean?" If we hadn't been stepmother and stepson, he would have approached with caution, the heat of vulnerability rising up his neck. A period of stillness stretched between them, with the weight of unsaid wishes hanging in the air. She observed him, her countenance altering as if she were thinking deeply. She added quietly, "You are young, but there is a part of me that understands your perspective." His pulse raced at her admission, buoyed by her candor. "You do think about it," he urged gently. She bit her lip, unsure. "I believe it is normal to feel a connection with someone you spend time with, especially in such a unique circumstance." He gave a nod. With a gentle grin, she leaned closer, their knees nearly touching. But we have to be careful, she reminded him, her gaze riveted on his. This may completely change everything. He expressed that his heart was pounding, but sometimes taking risks leads to the best things in life. As if drawn together by an invisible force, she closed the gap. Her lips touched his in a hesitant kiss. It was gentle and hesitant, with a spark forming between them. When they eventually drew away, breathless, he inquired, both exciting and forbidden. She peered deeply into his eyes. Her look expressed a mixture of apprehension and eagerness. "What now?" she inquired. Her voice was filled with wonder now, he replied, a confident smile forming on his lips. "We will approach this matter gradually." They shared another smile, a silent understanding passing between them as they entered uncharted territory together, and that ready to explore the depths of their connection and the possibilities that lay ahead. Indeed, as the days turned into weeks, their friendship grew stronger with each fleeting moment, heightening the tension in the air. They would exchange subtle touches, lingering glances, and murmurs. Their spines shivered at the thought. Every contact seemed packed with energy, the air heavy with hidden wants. He entered the living room one day while she was cleaning it, wearing a cheeky smile. "What are you doing?" he inquired, leaning against the doorframe. "Hey, just trying to make this place a little more attractive," she said, looking up at him. He came closer, picked up a loose pillow, and tossed it at her. "You know, you could need a break. How about we watch a movie together?" She felt a flutter of joy at the notion. "I suppose I could use some diversion," she remarked, smiling. They sat down on the couch, the low light from the screen flickering. The movie played across their faces, but their concentration was not on the screen. Instead, they stole looks at one another, their hands inching closer until their fingers eventually interlocked. As the story developed on screen, she looked to him, her pulse pounding. "Do you believe this is a beneficial idea?" she inquired, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean by above a whisper?" he responded, his brow furrowed slightly. She added, gesturing between them, "It feels so right, but it also feels dangerous." He gave a nodding expression. On a serious note, "I comprehend your sentiments, however, I am unable to suppress my feelings toward you." Before she could react, he leaned in closer, their lips meeting once again. This time, the kiss was deeper and more passionate, as if they were both finally admitting the truth of their feelings. The moment was intoxicating, the world outside fading away as they lost themselves in each other. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in years, the thrill of their connection igniting a fire. The sound of a vehicle entering the driveway shattered their momentary bliss. Panic gripped her as she drew away, her heart thumping. "What if someone notices us?" she inquired, her voice faltering and then faint. "Deal with it," he responded, his eyes calm and encouraging. "But I don't want to conceal this any longer," he said, pulling her back in, their lips crashing together urgently. That spoke of their shared wants. The kiss intensified, his hands tangled in her hair as she melted into him, her anxieties disappearing for a minute as they parted ways, both breathless. She felt a rush of ecstasy flow through her. "I don't want to conceal either," she acknowledged, her heart racing. He grinned, a mix of relief and delight lighting up his face, and then Latun made this true. He murmured quietly, the door opened, and they hastily disentangled themselves, sitting back casually against the couch as her husband stepped in, unaware of what had just happened. "Hey, what are you two up to?" he said, peering at the television. "Just watching a movie," she responded, attempting a grin. "How was your day?" She shrugged and plopped down in an armchair. Nothing thrilling, just the usual grind as they made small talk, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and terror. She secretly glanced at her stepson, the excitement of their hidden bond simmering beneath the surface. After a while, her husband excused himself, and as soon as the door closed, she turned to her stepson, her eyes wide with a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. Did you hear that? She muttered, a smile spreading over her face. He had no idea, but he chuckled, reducing the tension between them. It was wonderful when they exchanged knowing looks, didn't it? Definitely, she answered, coming in closer. But we have to be very careful. We can't let him suspect anything. He stated it in a serious tone, yet his eyes twinkled with mischief. But we can still enjoy our time together. With a playful twinkle in his eye, he extended for her hand, entwining their fingers. They spent the next hour conversing gently and exchanging secrets, and laughing, each touch igniting flames. He inquired, his voice low, her how deeply she needed this relationship. Do you ever wonder what it would be like if we were upfront about this? He said, his voice low. She occasionally admitted to biting her lip, but I'm not sure how that works. There's so much at risk. He leaned in closer. Their faces inches apart. What if we took a step at a time to explore the possibilities? The thought sent a rush of adrenaline through her. You really think so? He said, his gaze steady. I think we owe it to ourselves to explore. In that moment, a wave of determination washed over her. Okay then, let's see where this takes us, she agreed, her heart racing at the thought. They shared a quick, sweet kiss before pulling back, laughter bubbling up between them. I guess we need to make the most of our time together, he said, his eyes shining with mischief. As the weeks went by, they found ways to steal moments together whenever they could. They would sneak glances at each other during family dinners, brush against one another while cooking, and share secretive smiles that only they understood. One afternoon, while her husband was out running errands, she invited her stepson over to help with some chores around the house. I could really use an extra set of hands, she said, her heart racing at the thought of being alone with him. Of course, I'm always pleased to help, he replied with a grin. Spreading across his face, they worked side by side, laughter filling the air as they tackled the tasks at hand. The chemistry between them crackled with every touch and every brush of their arms as they moved into the living room to dust the shelves. She noticed how close he was standing, the heat radiating off his body. She teased, "You truly have the ability to make cleaning enjoyable." She was attempting to maintain a light atmosphere. I aim to please, he replied with a cheeky smile, his eyes sparkling. Just then their hands brushed against each other as they both reached for the same object on the shelf, and the contact sent a jolt of electricity through her. And she looked up into his eyes, both of them momentarily frozen in the moment. What if we began? But she cut him off, glancing towards the door nervously. We can't, she said quickly, though her heart raced at the thought of crossing that line. He took a step closer, his gaze intense. But what if we want to go the way he looked at her, making her heart race? She confessed, her breath catching in her throat. I do want to. However, what about your father? He doesn't have to know, he said, his voice low and steady. We can be discreet. I don't know, she said, her heart pounding with conflicting emotions. What if he finds out? Then we'll figure it out together, he insisted, stepping closer. Until their bodies were nearly touching, she could feel the heat radiating off him, the tension between them building to an almost unbearable degree. The room felt smaller, their breaths mingling in the charged air. Finally, giving in to her desire, she closed the gap, their lips meeting in a fervent kiss. It was different this time. Filled with urgency and passion, a culmination of all the moments they had shared leading up to this. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer as she melted into him, the world outside fading away. She felt alive, every nerve ending tingling with anticipation. But just as the kiss deepened, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway shattered the moment. Panic surged through her, and she pulled away, her eyes wide. What if he comes in? Then we'll act normal, he said, his voice filled with determination. We can handle this. They quickly stepped back from each other, hearts racing. As the front door swung open, her husband called out from the hallway, and she forced a smile onto her face, trying to act casual. "Hey, how was your errand?" she asked, her heart pounding as she caught her stepson's eye, a silent communication passing between them. "Not too bad. Just pick up a few things," he replied, stepping into the living room. "What are you two up to?" "Just tidying up," she said, her voice steady. Despite the adrenaline coursing through her, "Nothing too exciting or cool," he said. Oblivious to the tension that had just filled the room, he began unloading the bags he had brought home, while she and her stepson exchanged furtive glances, the thrill of their secret hanging heavy in the air after dinner that evening. Her husband settled in front of the television while she and her stepson retreated to the kitchen, ostensibly to clean up. "I can't believe we almost got caught," she whispered, her heart still racing. He chuckled softly, leaning against the counter. "It just makes it all the more exciting, doesn't it?" She looked at him, a smile creeping onto her face. "You're right, it does. Maybe we should find another way to spend our time together," he suggested, his eyes glinting. With mischief, like what she asked, intrigued. "Maybe we could take a drive out to the lake tomorrow," he proposed. "Just the two of us. It'll be beneficial to get away for a bit." Her heart raced at the thought. "That sounds perfect," she said, excitement bubbling up inside her. "Just promise we'll be careful always," he replied, stepping closer to her. "I'll take care of everything." The next day they set off for the lake, the sun shining brightly overhead as they drove along the winding roads. The air was filled with the scent of pine and wildflowers, and the promise of adventure hung between them. Upon their arrival, the lake's beauty captivated her. The water shimmered in the sunlight, and the tranquil surroundings engulfed them in tranquility. "Wow, it's beautiful here," she said, stepping out of the car. "Just wait until you see it up close," he said with a grin, leading her toward the water's edge. They walked along the shore, their feet sinking into the warm sand as they found a secluded spot. She felt a rush of exhilaration at being away from prying eyes. "Let's sit for a moment," he suggested. Plopping down on the soft grass, she joined him, and they both took a deep breath, reveling in the tranquility. "Really nice," he agreed, his voice low. "I'm glad we did this." She opened her eyes and faced him, the intensity of his stare sending chills down her spine. "Me too," she replied quietly as the sun began to set, creating a warm golden glow over the lake. He drew in closer, his pulse pounding with expectation. "Can I kiss you again?" he murmured, his voice just above a whisper. Her breath froze in her throat, but she nodded, her heart hammering. "Yes." He closed the gap between them. As their lips met in a deep, intense kiss, time seemed to pause, leaving only the two of them and their overwhelming connection until they drew apart, breathless. She was flushed and smiled at him. "We should do it more often," he answered. "I would like that." As darkness fell on the sky, they stayed at the lake, sharing secrets and dreams under the stars. With each moment spent together, their bond deepened, weaving a tapestry of emotions that felt both thrilling and dangerous. But as the night wore on, reality crept back in, reminding them of the lives they had to return to. "We should head back," she said reluctantly, glancing at the sky. "Yeah, I guess we should," he said with a tinge of regret in his voice. They collected their belongings, but as they went back to the car, he grabbed for her hand, interlocking their fingers. "No matter what happens, I don't want to lose this," he murmured, his eyes serious. "Neither do I," she assured, clutching his hand. Their hearts were filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty as they drove back home, knowing that whatever happened next, they would face it together. As they pulled into the driveway, her heart raced at the thought of returning to their normal lives. "Just act normal," she reminded him as they stepped out of the car. "Right," he said, giving her a reassuring smile. Inside the house, they found her husband watching TV. They exchanged casual greetings, trying their hardest to maintain their composure, but the thrill of their secret lingered in the air. a delicious tension that only heightened their connection. Later that evening, following her husband's bedtime, she couldn't resist the electric excitement coursing through her body. She moved very quietly. Her pulse was pounding as she reached her stepson's room. Taking a deep breath, she knocked quietly on his door. "Can I come in?" she muttered, her voice barely audible. "Yes, of course," he said, his voice low and welcoming as she went inside. A lamp's weak light gave a soothing glow over the room. He perched on the side of his bed, an eager expression in his eyes sending a rush of warmth through her. "I couldn't stop thinking about today," she admitted before slamming the door behind her. He answered, "I neither," with a grin on his face. It felt incredible to be together like that, so she moved closer, her heart racing in her chest. What if someone finds out? She wondered, but the excitement of the prospect just increased her eagerness. "Then we'll deal with it," he continued, his stare firm and unwavering. "I can't keep lying that I don't want you." The confessional session sent a shudder down her spine. "I feel the same way," she said, moving closer until they were practically touching. In an instant, he bridged the gap, taking her lips with his in a hot kiss that was charged with desperation, with passion, the culmination of all their stolen moments and unsaid wishes. She melted into him, her hands tangled in his hair as he intensified the kiss, their bodies pushing together as they kissed. The world around them slipped away, leaving only the two of them in a cozy bubble of warmth and familiarity. She could feel the heat emanating from him, sparking every nerve ending in her body. And when they finally separated, breathless and hot, she peered into his eyes, her pulse racing. "That was wonderful." He smiled, his eyes gleaming with malice. "I'd been waiting to do it." "Me too," she admitted, biting her lip as a wave of want coursed through her. "I was unsure whether we could actually go. I didn't follow through on it," he acknowledged, his fingers brushing across her face, but it felt too appealing to pass up. Leaning in again, she captured his lips in another hot kiss, filled with desire and need. Their bodies were pushed together, and she could feel the heat emanating from him as he put his arms around her, drawing her closer. The kiss intensified, sparking a fire within her that she hadn't felt in years. Each kiss sent a surge of energy through her veins, making her feel alive. They lost themselves in each other, their kisses becoming more intense and frantic as they delved further into their need. As they drew away, her heart pounded with the reality of what they were doing. "We cannot allow anyone to catch us," she muttered, her breath coming in short gasps. "We won't," he assured, his eyes full with resolve, "but I want to investigate this and see where it takes her." I nodded, feeling both excited and worried. "Okay," she whispered quietly, "but we must always be cautious," he said with a teasing smile on his lips. "We can take our time." As they sat on the bed, she felt a surge of warmth and eagerness. He leaned in closer. Again, their lips met in another soft kiss, this time tender, filled with unspoken promises and deep emotions. With each kiss, they began to explore each other more. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer as she responded by tangling her fingers in his hair. The kiss deepened, becoming more passionate as they lost themselves in the moment. "Do you understand how long I've wanted this?" he muttered against her lips, his breath warm and seductive, "Longer than I can admit." She admitted, her pulse beating at the reality of their connection, and they leaned back in, their lips touching. Together lightly before kissing her passionately again. She could feel the heat building between them, a delicious tension that ignited every nerve ending in her body as their kisses became more fervent. He gently pushed her back onto the bed, his body hovering above hers. She gasped softly, feeling a rush of exhilaration at the intimacy of the moment. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. His eyes searched hers for confirmation. "I am," she said, her pulse pounding with expectation. "I want you with that." He bent down and recaptured her lips. The world outside went away in a hot kiss, leaving only the two of them in their bubble of need and passion. He kissed a path down her neck, sending thrills of pleasure running through her. "You're so beautiful," he whispered, his lips brushing against her skin. Her heart raced at his words, like a fire within her. "And you're so lovely," she said, her voice filled with passionate longing. They continued kissing and probing. As they entwined, they pressed against one another's bodies with an eagerness that was both wonderful and overpowering. She could feel the heat emanating from him, and she enjoyed the proximity of their bodies. Every kiss and caress seemed electrifying. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in years, the thrill of their connection igniting a fire within her as the night went on. They lost track of time, caught up in their own world of passion and intimacy. The kisses grew deeper, their bodies moving together in a dance of desire that felt both exhilarating and forbidden. And finally, as they lay tangled together, both breathless and flushed, she turned to him. A smile crept over her face. "That was all I expected and more." She giggled gently, sliding a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'm delighted. I've never felt anything like this before." "Neither have I," she acknowledged, her pulse beating from the reality of what they had just shared. "But we must be very careful now. Trust me, I'll always be cautious." "Ernest, I don't want to lose this." Neither did she. They exchanged a lengthy kiss, a wordless pledge that they would manage their newfound bond together, no matter what hurdles arose. As the darkness deepened around them, they held one another close, relishing the warmth and closeness of the moment. Days turned into weeks, and their secret relationship blossomed. Each stolen moment felt charged with excitement and urgency. They would find ways to sneak away from family gatherings, stealing kisses in quiet corners or lingering touches when no one was watching. One afternoon, her husband had gone out to run errands, leaving them home alone. The moment the door clicked shut, excitement coursed through her. "Finally, some time to ourselves," she remarked, her eyes twinkling. Letton, gleaming with wickedness, took advantage of the situation. He responded with an ardent glance. They proceeded to the living room, their hearts beating as he stepped closer without saying anything and sat on the couch. She leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his body against her own. "Do you believe we will ever be able to be honest about this?" he asked, his voice low. "She acknowledges that her heart is filled with both hope and anxiety, but we need to proceed cautiously." "I don't mean to hurt anyone," he murmured quietly, "but I can't stop how I feel." She gazed at him, her heart beating. "I feel the same way." He leans in. Taking her lips in a passionate kiss, the kiss intensified, filled with need and want, as they lost themselves in each other once again. Their hands began to roam, exploring each other's bodies, as the kiss became more heated. She felt alive, her nerve endings vibrating with eagerness. "Let us take our time," he said between kisses, his breath warm. She nodded against her skin, her heart beating at the thought, "I want to feel." They proceeded to kiss every minute with you, the world around them melting away as they lost themselves in the connection they had. Each kiss and each touch felt electrifying, igniting feelings that had long been dormant. As they came apart, breathless and hot, he stared deep into her eyes. "This is it." "I've always wanted you," she said, feeling a surge of warmth flow through her. They knew they had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, but instead of fear, there was excitement, a thrilling sense of adventure that lay ahead. They leaned in again, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss, the promise of their love and connection hanging in the air as the sun began to set outside, casting a warm glow around them. They savored the sweetness of their love, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. Weeks passed, and they grew more confident in their relationship. They began to embrace their secret moments, finding new ways to express their love and desire for each other. One evening, while her husband was away for the night, she invited her stepson over to watch a movie. The anticipation hung in the air as they sat on the couch, their bodies close together. "Do you think he'll be gone long?" he asked, his voice low and excited. "Long enough for us to enjoy ourselves," she replied, her heart racing at the thrill of being alone together as the movie played in the background. Their bodies were inches apart, the tension between them palpable. She could feel the heat radiating from him, and the desire in his eyes made her heart race. "Should we make this a little more interesting?" With a cheeky smile, he leans in closer. "What do you have in mind?" she inquired, faking innocence as eagerness swelled. He responded, his voice low and enticing, "I'd rather focus on us with that," and moved in, catching her lips in a hot kiss. A thrill swept through her. She melted against him, the kiss deepening as they lost themselves in each other. The world outside faded away. Their hands roamed freely, exploring each other with a mix of urgency and tenderness. She could feel every touch ignite a fire within her, awakening desires that had been building for weeks. Breaking the kiss, he looked into her eyes, a mixture of desire and affection. "You're incredible," he said, sliding a strand of hair behind her ear. "You energize me," she answered, her pulse beating as she leant in for another kiss. As the kisses became more intense, she felt a surge of adrenaline, and they slid back into the sofa, laughing and mixing with their kisses as they drew closer. "Do you see how wonderful this is?" He spoke softly on her lips. She muttered, "I do." His heart was brimming with love, and he never wanted it to stop. With a determined expression, he claimed her lips once again, their bodies entangled as they explored the depths of their love. Each kiss was a promise, a testament to the bond they shared, and with each touch they created their own universe. The movie continued to play in the background as they became engrossed in their moment. They shared soft kisses and lively banter, losing sight of time as their hearts connected. Gradually, they drew apart, breathless and smiling. Basking in the warmth of their connection, "I think we should make this a regular event," he murmured teasingly. "Absolutely," she said, her heart beating at the prospect. But we must be cautious." He nodded, his face serious. "I pledge to be always cautious. This is what I desire." To finish, they leaned in for one more kiss, confirming their pledge with a shared grin. The thrill of their secret relationship filled the air, and as they pulled away, they both knew they had embarked on a journey together, one filled with love, passion, and the exhilarating thrill of the unknown. As the evening wore on and they cuddled together on the couch, whispering sweet nothings and sharing dreams for the future, with each passing moment their bond deepened, a beautiful tapestry woven from the threads of their love and desire in that quiet moment. Were aware that their relationship was delicate, yet in each other's arms, they felt invincible as the stars twinkled. Outside the window, they shared one final lingering kiss, a promise of what was to come and the magnificent adventure they were just beginning. With hearts full of optimism, they welcomed the trip ahead, ready to face the world hand in hand.